This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand Dawn and Great Rising, Cleveland, Ohio, and the rest of planet Earth. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. Today I have the honor and pleasure of interviewing someone who I have admired for a few months, I'll say, a few years actually. I am just fresh back from the Pittsburgh International Jazz Festival, and I know this is going to air a few weeks later, but I'm just in awe. He is an amazing performer. He is an amazing musician, and I'm sure he is an amazing person because, as I see it, he's kind of following in the footsteps of none other than Sean Jones in terms of preaching, teaching, and reaching, which you may have heard last night. But again, a phenomenal performer. His name is Chris Coles, and again, it's an honor to have him on Open Door with Vince Robinson. Welcome to the show.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me, Vince. I appreciate you.
Yes. Now, usually I start the show by having folks talk about growing up in Cleveland and all of that. We're going to dispense with that because we know that you grew up here and you went to a junior high school and high school and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. We don't want to waste time with that. We want to get to the good stuff. So I'm going to start with how it happened that you were involved in the Pittsburgh International Jazz Festival.
Well, I reached out to Miss Janice Burley and Orlando Watson about the idea of doing the Nine Lives Project, or like a curated show that would feature the Nine Lives Project, the Nine Lives Suite, at the August Wilson Center. Originally, we were supposed to do it in June of this year, and Orlando and Miss Burley saw it fit. I was like, well, why don't we just move it to the Jazz Festival? And I was like, okay, that's totally fine. And it kind of just went from there. You know, it just serendipitous. It just happened like that.
For the benefit of those who don't know about the Nine Lives Project, talk about what it was, or what it is, actually.
Mm-hmm. So the Nine Lives Project is an interdisciplinary work that uses animation and dance and spoken word along with music to tell and honor the victims of the Charleston church shooting that happened June 17th, 2015 at Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina.
What about that compelled you to create this work?
Honestly, it was the fact that I didn't know anything about it. It had already happened, and maybe it had been 2 weeks. And the first time I was hearing about it was 2 weeks after it happened, and it was on the Jon Stewart show. And if you remember that, the how he began that show, he's just like, I don't have anything to say. Like, this is beyond tragic, and I couldn't even write a script. Basically, is kind of how that show started. And I was just like, man, what is he talking about? And then I went and did the research and saw what had happened. And, at the time, I think in my life, well, what I would have been maybe 28 at that time. So it was almost 10 years ago. Nothing like that had ever happened in my life. I remember my dad. My dad was born in 1935, so he was an older gentleman when he had me, and when he had passed in '99, he was 64. So I know he would have seen things like that, tragic moments like that in his lifetime, but that hadn't happened in my lifetime. At least I hadn't seen anything like that. So it was really struck me. And I remember writing the second movement first. And it's just this simple chorale. I wish I can. Is it possible to play it on the piano just so you can hear the chorale?
If you're right there in front of it.
Yeah, I'm right here in front of it.
Okay.
So I'll play this is the first thing I wrote for that piece. That was like the first thing I wrote. So I played that and finished it out. Um, it's it's kind of like an overarching theme that happens through other movements. It comes in the second movement and the fourth movement. So I wrote that, and then I finished, the second movement and called it Nine Lives. We played it at the Bop Stop just to kind of workshop it that same summer, and then I went to this place called Banff, and in Canada, it's the Banff Center. I was selected. I was like one of 50, like maybe 1,500 people auditioned for this, but it was one of 50 to go to this workshop, and I took that piece with me. And the leader of that workshop is Vijay Iyer, famous pianist, and he was my teacher for the last week, and I brought it in, and he was like, he helped me work on it and kind of curate it to make it a certain way, and then he said, man, you should write a grant for this. And in 2017, I didn't believe him. In 2017, I tried to do it, and I won. It was a Night Arts Challenge, and from that allowed me that grant that I got from the Knight Foundation allowed me to finish the whole piece and get animation and get dance, pay people to write verses and spoken word, and bring my buddy Sam Blakesley out to perform the first movement. So that's the Nine Lives project and kind of how it became what it was. But it started as one piece.
As you describe it, it really is a phenomenal piece. And, what you played kind of gives you the underpinning of it, but it doesn't give you the full expanse of it. So what I want to do is just give the listeners, because they can't see what happened, but give the listeners a perspective of it. You have kind of a small orchestra of sorts, because you have full horn section, you've got the basses, you had Theron playing piano, and then a screen comes down and you see this film. You had two people who rapped, but I say it in a very positive sense because the lyrics were very substantive. And then you had the amazing Orlando Watson do a spoken word piece that just absolutely blew everyone away. And then on top of all of that, you had a solo dancer that came out who was dancing to the music that inspired her to create her movement. So it wasn't a small thing. It was on the stage in the August Wilson Center, and it was kind of intimate. With the Jazz Festival, they had two stages outside, but this was inside an auditorium. It was quiet. It was respectful, and it was just amazing. I'm sorry for gushing over it, but, I've seen a lot of music in my life. I've been doing jazz concerts for almost 45 years, but it was one of those things that, you don't forget seeing something like that. So, again, hats off to you for creating that. And I also want to emphasize the fact that you kind of amplified Cleveland, because there were a lot of brothers from Cleveland on that stage.
Everybody's from Ohio, minus one, Kaylin Horgan, the dancer. Outside of that, everybody is from Ohio.
Mm-hmm. Could you name the rappers that performed?
So we played two works out front, small pieces out front, before we got to Nine Lives, and the first piece, Mother's Gift, featured Orlando. Normally in the single that we released would feature Orlando Watson. Then we had Flaco Torres come out, and then we had Scuff Mixon come out. And Flaco Torres and Orlando are kind of sprinkled throughout the entire set.
Okay. And the other thing that I noticed is that you had colleagues from the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that you are in the Jazz Orchestra. You're kind of a fixture, because I don't think that I've been to many of their performances that you weren't there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I love the CJO. I love those guys, and I'm thankful that they trust me
Yes.
to be a part of that organization.
Right. And also working with Sean Jones, who you and he did a number of performances during the festival. What's it like working with Sean?
Sean is, one of the most loving, humble and gracious people that I've ever had the privilege of working with. Every second is a lesson in how you treat people and the power of maximum love for humanity. Every second is a lesson in that, and I'm just glad he believes in us and what we do. It gives us great power. All of us on that stage, we experience great power because of our interactions with Brother Sean, and I'm thankful, thankful that he believes in what we can do, not just us being in Ohio, but just as a collective, all of us and him. The power in that, it's just truly remarkable, and just incredibly grateful.
Well, I'm going to amplify the fact that I'm certain, will be on stage with him when he performs at the Maltz on November 1st.
Yes, yeah.
I know you couldn't miss that one. So for the benefit of the audience, the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra will be doing a performance on November 1st at the Maltz Performing Arts Center. It's going to feature Sean Jones, Chris Coles, and Chris Anderson is probably going to be there as well. But it's something that you definitely want to make sure that you check out, and you can go to their website and get your tickets now. Make sure that we pack this house, especially with brothers and sisters, because folks be sleeping on the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra, but the orchestra is doing amazing things, and they're bringing Sean. They're also bringing Terry Lynn Carrington within the next year, and some other shows that you will definitely want to take advantage of. So
absolutely.
You just want to shout out CJO, and full transparency, I'm on the board, so it's part of my mission to bring this awareness to everyone. But that's another reason that I wanted to have this conversation, because when people think of CJO, they may not think of folks like Chris Coles and Chris Anderson and Johnny Cochran Jr. and others, Theron, who all contribute to the success of that group and play an integral part in integrating the group, because it's really important that we have a diversity within that sphere.
Can I say something about?
Please.
So when I was 18, 17, 18, I was just starting to really get into like jazz. One of the first things I heard was a piece by David Morgan called Consolation. And Consolation is a piece, it's a part of Jack Shantz's jazz unit. Dave had adopted it for many things. He's done it for jazz orchestra, but the jazz unit, Jack Shantz's jazz unit, used to play every Monday night at the Bop Stop. And they would offset with Bobby Salvaggio's Red Rhinoceros. And I saw Dave Morgan and Jack and all these guys play all the time. And I heard Consolation, and I said, man, I want to play that piece. And it was hearing Dave's writing is one of the things that drew me to Youngstown State, outside of like also talking to Ken LeGrand, who was Mr. LeGrand was my teacher in high school. He was my saxophone teacher. And he had mentioned this young brother named Sean Jones had went there. He's like, Sean went to Youngstown State. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going there.
Okay.
It was one of the only places I could get into too, because my grades were terrible.
Okay, we're gonna pause it right there, and I want you to pick up, because I know this is gonna be an interesting story.
Yeah.
I'm speaking with the magnificent Chris Coles right here on 95.9 FM WOVU. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on Burton Bell Car Community Radio. We'll be right back after this.
WOVU listeners, did you know you can call us during any live show? Did you know you can ask questions or give your comments live on the air? If you didn't know, now you know. Call the WOVU request line at 216-271-0959. Your voice is our request. No one says it like you. You're better than the rest. Call us 216-271-0959. Questions, comments, complaints, we want all that and the kitchen sink. This is WOVU. Our voices united. We can't do it without you. Call on through.
Hi, this is Gerard Amir Shakir, and you're listening to 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson and the conversation with my guest, Chris Coles, the amazing saxophonist, or as some would say, saxophonist, if they are the cultured folk. But you were just telling us about something that happened at the Bop Stop and Mr. Shantz and the unit that he was performing with and how it inspired you.
Yeah. So hearing that group, it pushed me. It was pushing me along with like knowing that this young trumpet player Sean Jones at the time. He's 8 years older than me, so he would have been just kind of finishing up and like in Pittsburgh or going for his master's. It pushed me in the direction of Youngstown State along with, my teacher, Ken LeGrand. And I get there and, it's tough when you go to a place like Youngstown State, because at the time, I was one of 25 saxophonists, and I was the only brother. It's the only black person there. And, throughout my time there, Dave Morgan really, really would encourage and really push for me to dig deep and really understand the power of this music. There's people in the CJO that has done this for me throughout my entire career. When I finished at Youngstown State, I went to the University of Akron for my master's. Jack Shantz was the director of jazz studies there. He got me a full ride to the University of Akron. He fought for me to get it, and he fought for me to keep it all 3 years I was there. So these people in the CJO, they've done amazing things for a lot of us. Darren Brown is a product of the University of Akron, and he studied with Jack. Nathan Paul Davis, a product of the University of Akron, studied with Jack. And there's so many other people in this community. Holbrook Rouse, and he's a part of Free Black, and he raps. He does some production in that group for Flaco Torres. He also is a product of the University of Akron, even though he didn't finish. We all met at the University of Akron. A lot of the people you see on stage, we met at the University of Akron. Brad Wagner was the first person that I met at Youngstown State. He kind of taught me how to really play in a big band. So all these people that, I met Chris Anderson at Youngstown State. All these people that on the stage, they've poured so much into me, and all of them were a part of the CJO in some kind of way, shape, and form. So, it's, in many ways, I was raised by them just as much as I was raised by Eddie Backus in the streets,
Mm.
So I owe a lot of like my development and my artistic ideals and values. I owe them to a great deal of the people in the CJO, and I'm incredibly grateful, full circle now, to be a part of that organization.
Well, I observed you last night conducting, and I could only imagine that at some point it might be you standing in front of an orchestra doing that in the same way that the person who was conducting the orchestra now, Paul Ferguson, might be doing it. So I'm going to put it out there in the wind, perhaps that might be you at some point in time. Talk about the importance of study of music, because I know there are a lot of talented musicians in Cleveland. I'm not going to include myself as one of them, although I think I have some level of talent. But
man, you know what good music sounds like.
Yes. But there are so many of us if you ask them to play a C13 chord or a G minor 7 with a flat 5 or something like that, they wouldn't have any idea what you were talking about. But as I observed you last night, most of the time your eyes were on the page. And that's something that separates those who are on a certain level from others, which is not to diminish a person's ability to play by ear, because when you can play by ear like that, you just got it. But sometimes it's difficult to communicate certain concepts or theories or whatever because you can't really connect to the page. So talk to us about the importance of studying music.
You know, like I don't think it's important. I think being able to read is like, it's a skill like anything else. You know, it's not like necessary though. I think the important thing is to make sure your ears are so strong that you can communicate what you want to communicate to people in a way that y'all can be connected. You know what I mean? You don't always have to be able to see it to know like what it is. That being said, if you want to play with everybody and you want to be like, you know, a part of all scenes, I think it's really important to get your ear together. I mean, get your eyes together, you know. I want to play with everybody. That was one thing I had always thought. I really like playing with as many different kinds of people and many different situations as possible, as long as it's good. Everything else really doesn't matter, the style and whatever else. So the more versatile you are, the better art is for you. That's just my humble opinion. So I think it's absolutely essential, depending on who you want to be with, you know, and who you want to play with.
Yeah, and to amplify your point, I'm not sure that Michael Jackson wrote music or, you know, studied it on that level. I mean, he was just one of those people who came into the universe and just had all that talent, but he could communicate what he wanted to hear and translate to some of the magnificent recordings that he made.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, another thing that I think about when I think about folks like you, and then I think about somebody like Robert Hubbard and others, the whole idea of living a musician's life. And some of us, like Walter Barnes and Elijah Gilmore and others, are blessed to be able to tour nationally with folks that, you know, everybody has heard of. And then some folk are just kind of here in Northeast Ohio, and they have to work other jobs in order to make a living. You can't make it solely as a musician. What are your thoughts about being local as opposed to being international, so to speak?
I think it's different strokes for different folks. I don't want to play anyone else's music. I have no desire to. I want to play with everyone, but I like playing my own stuff way more than that. You know, I like to create. You know, I like to be in situations where that's the forefront of the thing. So I think whatever you got to do that, and if that means you're a teacher, then that's fine. That's fine if you can play your own stuff and you can work and do your own thing. That's a sacrifice I'm willing to deal with. It could equal in the end later on. It could be that I end up touring and being, you know, international star or whatever. I'm not really concerned with that as much as I am like, I want to be able to just create my own stuff and play other people's stuff, be able to play other people's stuff, but I'm more concerned with like my own sound, my own project and whatever. And that takes time. It just, you know, you can't do that unless you're, you know, Sean Jones, where you're just an absolute monster trumpet player and can do all of it. You know, most of us are not like that. You know, I would like to think of myself as, you know, I'm a good musician, but it takes a little more time for me. It's going to take a little bit more time for me to be doing all the things I want to do. If that makes any sense at all. I guess I I think it's just whatever your path is, that's what it is. I don't concern myself with how it looks. It's like this is just what I got to do.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is we play other people's music, and I'm speaking in a general sense because for whatever reason we might think it's relatable. When you play an original composition and nobody's ever heard it before, you might be concerned that folks may not receive it a certain way. So, when you go locally, you go to all these different spots that folks are playing music. It's like they're playing the same songs, the same songs over and over and over again. And I'm with you on that, Chris. I like playing my own music because I know my music. I don't have to look at the keyboard when I'm playing my music because it's in me, But then when I'm playing somebody else's music, I have to be concerned, well, is this the right chord in the right place? Am I connected to the melody the way they did it? And, and then it's the expectation of the audience. They expect you to recreate what somebody else did. And it's impossible to do what somebody else did because they did it when they did it, and you're doing it when you're doing it, and you're doing it the way you choose to do it. So I don't know. It's part, audiences and them being receptive or not being receptive to something new or something that they haven't heard before. But I will say this: I play my own stuff when I play out, and I kind of guide my fellow musicians into what I'm doing or what I'm trying to do, and they pick up on it well. But I fully endorse the idea of being creative and writing your own music. And when you say write, you're not just saying composing a melody in your head. You're talking about actually writing the notes on a piece of paper.
Yeah, or just being able to communicate what it is. There's this notion that like music needs to be, in order for music to be accessible, everybody needs to have heard it before. I disagree with that notion. I think that like what people want to hear is they want to escape from like the everyday, mundane, boring, or tragic circumstances of life. And if you can like transport people there, it doesn't really matter if they recognize it or not. They just want to feel something. And if you can do that, then you win. I just choose to like go in that. I want to go in that path no matter what. And there's no offense to anyone else who don't want to do that. It's like, you got to pay the bills. So if you want to tour and do that to pay the bills, then hey, more power to you. I would do it too. I would do it too. It's not, I won't say no to like playing with a famous artist, or whatever. But what I really get geeked about and excited about is the possibility and attempting at trying to bring people into my space and being able to do that with my own sound and exploring that and hopefully having them come to my space and like allowing themselves to be vulnerable through experiencing me doing it in front of them.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense. And the auditorium full of people is the evidence of that, because I'm sure that there are probably folks in Pittsburgh who never heard of Chris Coles, but they were there. And having Sean Jones's name on the bill probably didn't hurt you, but still,
most certainly did not.
Right. But when they got there, they saw bits and pieces of Sean Jones, but Chris Coles was on that stage for the entire time, and so people ate that up. I want to talk to you about a few other things, and one of those things is just the state of jazz when we get back, because I think it's a really important conversation. And just to give you a heads up, I had a conversation with an African-centered scholar the other day who kind of pushed back on the idea that jazz is a bad word, because there are some jazz musicians who don't think that jazz is the word that should be used to describe the music. So we're going to dive into that when we get back. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM, WOVU, Burton Belcar Community Radio. Back after this.
This is DJ Chris Dowles, Programs and Music Director here at WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Belcar Community Radio station. WOVU 95.9 FM sends a big big thank you to the entire staff of the St. Luke's Foundation and President and CEO Timothy Tramble for awarding WOVU 95.9 FM $25,000 to purchase the WOVU 95.9 FM mobile vehicle. On behalf of our entire team, our Executive Director, Joy Johnson, and Executive Board, we said thank you, St. Luke's Foundation, for continuing addressing social determinants of health for our people in our neighborhoods and throughout Cuyahoga County. Thank you. This message is being brought to you by WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Welcome back to Open Door and my conversation with Chris Coles, the amazing saxophonist who just had a show at the Pittsburgh International Jazz Festival, the 9 Lives Project, and some other things. He had a cadre of musicians from the Cleveland Jazz Orchestra. And just to reiterate, Sean Jones will be performing at the Maltz Performing Arts Center on November 1st, and you definitely want to get your tickets for that. And on stage with him will be Chris Coles and some of the other folks that you love to see in that orchestra, so we invite you to attend. Want to talk to you about just the music itself. You know, there's been this underlying theme over the years that, you know, folks are afraid that jazz is going to disappear, you know, because they listen to popular music. And at one time, jazz was the popular music. Jazz was the music that people danced to. And now we dance to trap music and other stuff. But I observed the concert that Sean did with I think it was 3 or 4 young people who were all about to graduate from different music schools, Juilliard, so forth and so on. And when I witness young people who play at that level, I have no worries, no concerns that jazz is going to go by the wayside. What are your thoughts about the evolution of the music at this point?
I mean, that's just what it is. You can't stop an immovable or unstoppable force. You know, it's the fabric of the African American experience in this country is woven through all Black musics, which is anything that's, like, I would say as American, like, Black people have had their hands in it in terms of art. So it evolves and grows, and I just think that we should try not to control it too much. Like, I mean, if you want to say jazz is swinging music, there's plenty of music that's like hip hop based that swings. So it's like, is that jazz? I think these terms just prevents what's possible. It prevents us from seeing what is possible. So I try not to get involved too much with naming genres and things like that. I think it's a kind of I won't say silly, but it doesn't concern me as much. The music is in great hands. We're all participating in it and in a beautiful way. Any of us that like understand the music, you know, if someone asked me to play like Johnny Hodges, I could do it. Mm-hmm. But I don't want it. I think Johnny Hodges and Duke Ellington and all those people would agree. They would hear the 9 Lives Project and say, that's it too.
Yes.
You know?
Well, you know, really, the music does what the music does. I mean, when that kick drum is thumping and the snare is hitting when it's supposed to hit and the bass is doing what it's doing, mm-hmm. You know, if you got a soul, if you got spirit.
Come on now, preaching right now.
You know, and it amazes me, Chris, how sometimes the music could just be slamming and folks would be sitting in their seats and just still as a rock. I'm like, how can you not be moved? Perhaps it's because they're looking at it from an intellectual perspective and not necessarily the feeling that comes from it. But it boggles my mind sometimes because I've been to shows where, you know, I can't sit still just because the music is doing what it's doing. But to talk about the direction that the music is going and the importance of the youth being connected to it, I witnessed a performance by Venetia Gould, and I was just blown away by her writing because it was just so accessible. And I'm thinking about how musicians, and I'm calling them musicians loosely, but folks in the hip hop genre and some of the music that they're creating right now is just so profane and it's so graphic and it's so gutter. But then I switch over to her and she's got a song called Cute Boy. And she was just talking about how she loves to see a man in a suit. And she wants to sell this song to Brooks Brothers because she thinks that it would make a great advertising campaign. But listening to her lyrics and how down to earth they were, how relatable they were, and how I'm struggling to find the words to describe it. But again, it's just the idea that there are young people who have these talents and they need to be exposed to everyone because, let's face it, a lot of folks that are in hip hop music, they do it because they're chasing the bag.
I would say some are, but I feel like that would be the case in jazz too. Everybody's trying to get paid and everybody's using the devices they can use to do that. I would say there are some jazz musicians that they're just chasing the bag in a different way. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
There are a lot of bag chasers, like just get the hit. And once you get the hit, your family's taken care of.
Yes. Well, I also look at that on a local level because, you just have different ponds. You got small ponds, you got big ponds, and you got oceans, So in this small pond of Cleveland, Ohio, you have a lot of folks who I don't necessarily want to call it chase the bag because, what they pay in a lot of situations is really peanuts. So, it's like musicians will go to the highest bidder. So whoever is paying the most on a certain weekend, that's where they're going to play. And so all these cats, they all play the same songs. They show up for the gig. They don't rehearse. They get their $50 or their $100 and then they keep it moving. It's really sad that it's that way. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have folks who are exploiting these musicians and just paying them peanuts. And then I wonder what it's like for someone like you who has played on stages and gotten a decent paycheck and then, are subjected to or know folks who are subjected to playing for less than their worth just because of the politics of the music business. I feel like it happens to all of us. The $50 gigs don't stop for any of us who aren't like super famous. But I think that one of the things I'm beginning to see for myself, at least, is like I have like a 2/3 rule. It's like, if the bread's good, that's awesome. But the music's got to be great too. And the people's got to be great. And it's like, I'll take 2 of the 3 of those. Sometimes, it's like this gig isn't going to pay anything, but it's a great opportunity and everybody's cool and the music's killing. All right. Okay, cool. I'll come and play for free for that. So I think it's like just down to the individual, what they want to do, but, it's essential for artists, I think, to stand together and decide what the bread's going to be, what's acceptable bread, and then stand on that, period, regardless of the situation. Because it is easy for promoters to expose or exploit artists. I know people around here that would say things like, a Cleveland jazz artist, like they shouldn't get anything more than $100. And it's like, and I remember hearing that from a promoter, saying that and just thinking like this is the reason why people in the Midwest leave. If you want to keep the talent here and you want to keep people here, paying them
proper and treating them like, they're the kings and queens that they are is, I think, absolutely essential. People complain about there's nothing to do or this and that and the other. And there's great music happening and great things and great events to do around here all the time. And people don't support it, or you have promoters who exploit artists because they can. And, we just got to find a way to tell our truth and make sure that doesn't happen. I think it's more than possible. I think that's actually changing a lot here. I think it's much better than it used to be in terms of that around here. But I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And I think, to your point, I think things are they are improving. I don't know if you're familiar with Sean Watterson, but he heads a local group of independent venue owners, and I think he's with a national organization that does the same thing.
Okay.
They did a survey of venue owners and musicians in 20 different cities, and they came up with some data based on that. And they talked about, the average pay for musicians and so forth and so on. And they're also looking at creating some solutions. So one of the solutions that came up in a conversation was to give rebates to venue owners for liquor sales. And those rebates could then be shared with musicians. So I think that there is conversation about ways to make the situation more fair, because, the standard operating procedure is a venue will invite a particular group to their venue because they know that they have an audience. Mm-hmm, and sometimes they kind of rely on the group, that artist, to do all the promotion, and then they just sit back and let folks come and drink and eat and get paid, and then still get paid peanuts. And there's nothing fair about that.
No, no, not at all.
But, there are things that need to be changed, and I think we are making some progress in relation to that. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that I've been blessed to do some gigs with your teacher, Ken LeGrand. And based on what you just said, I might have to invite you to do a performance with me. I promise I'll pay you. And I'll do the best I can.
I'll do it on the humble for you.
Yes, brother. I really appreciate that. And I think my mission is to just bring music to the people. Larchmere Arts is a very intimate space, and it's conducive to the kinds of things that we could do. I witnessed a performance yesterday with Venetia, and she had a pianist and a bassist, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow, that's really what I appreciate, because the simplicity of it allows the lyrics to really come to life. Mm-hmm. So I want to look forward to that. And now I'm not as trepidatious about asking the great Chris Coles to do a performance.
Anytime.
Yes.
Anytime.
Yes. Well, I've been blessed to also perform with Cecil Rucker.
Yeah, Mr. Good Vibes.
Oh man, Cecil is amazing. He really is a Cleveland treasure, and I really wish that more folks knew about him. And since Wolf's Den closed down, and Eddie Backus has transitioned, we don't really have the same energy that we had before. But I think it's something that can be recreated, and we can amplify this great music called jazz. Mm-hmm. Now. Yeah. I want to shift gears and talk to you about Chris Coles, the young man who was growing up trying to figure out what he was going to do with his life, and how it ended up that he became a music prodigy, so to speak, someone who teaches, all those other kinds of things. Because I don't know, you could have been 6 years old thinking that, hey, I want to play saxophone, or you could have had other thoughts in your mind, and then what happened. So we're going to dive into that when we come back. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Belcar Community Radio.
We here at WOVU 95.9, Our Voices United, are about to bring you crystal clear sound on our terrestrial frequency of 95.9. In fact, you will have to turn your volume down. It will be 100% stereo with a bass rocking your speakers, and our WOVU 95.9 website and mobile app will have 192,000 kilohertz over 32-bit. Maybe that is hard to understand, but your ears will know. There is a new sound on WOVU 95.9 FM, our website, and our mobile app. WOVU, a Burton Bell Car Community Radio.
Hi, this is Olivera Perkins from Signal Cleveland, and you're listening to WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Car Community Radio.
Welcome back to Open Door. I'm speaking with Chris Coles, an amazing saxophonist, and want to talk to him about how it came about that he picked up a saxophone and decided that he wanted to play. What was your musical journey? How did it start for you?
Well, about fourth grade, there was this program that the Cleveland Music School settlement started. It was an after-school program, and they were going to the elementary schools and teaching music after school. And there's a trumpet player, Willard Greenwich, who taught recorder, and so he taught me how to play that instrument. And I kind of got into it from there. I don't know if you know Ken Ferguson.
Yes.
Yeah, so he had these talent shows, and I remember playing on one of them and winning, playing recorder. I played Lean on Me. So I was like really into, playing early. Then I got with a bandmaster at the time, the Miles Park Salvation Army Corps, James May, and did like an audition on drums, and started playing drums. My teacher was John McCoy. He's a great drummer in the area. So I got to the Salvation Army, and would spent a lot of time there, and going to things with Mr. May, and he's Mr. May has like absolutely been integral to like my development, even up to now, like from 7 to 38, and he just would kind of like expose me to things, and started listening to smooth jazz. And my dad, my mom were into that. They were into Stevie Wonder and soul music, and my mom really liked Biggie and Tupac. So you hear horns and stuff on that. It's like, man, I kind of want to get a saxophone. And got to about the age of 13, still playing recorder, and I was playing classical snare as well. And my dad bought me a saxophone shortly after his birthday in 1999. It was an alto saxophone, King Cleveland. It was made in Cleveland. The horn was made in Cleveland. It was a beat-up horn, but it got the job done. And about a month after he bought me that instrument, he passed. And I was like in the sports into a lot of sports. Like I liked playing football. I liked playing basketball. So I was kind of just doing a lot of different things, and I just thought maybe for my father's him getting that instrument, maybe I should like just stick with it. So I, along with studying at the Salvation Army, I went to this music school called Broadway Music School in the Arts, and I was studying recorded there, and I ran into this saxophonist Bob Keebler and Dennis Campbell. Bob Keebler is no longer with us, but we did this pancake breakfast, and I was playing recorder and saxophone, and he kind of took me under his wing and started kind of like just showing me how to read better, like play different instruments. Like I play clarinet because of him. I play flute because of him. I was really digging into the classical saxophone because of him, and Mr. May and Dennis. And right when I was getting ready to graduate, I needed a new horn, and Bob bought the horn the alto saxophone that I play today. Bob bought that for me. It's he bought that instrument, and I went to Youngstown State and started there. That was Youngstown was a very tough. It was tough time because my mom didn't understand why I wanted to do music. She thought I was going to be struggling most of my life if I chose music. She wanted me to do something different, so she did not approve of of me becoming a musician or wanting to become a musician. But I did it anyway, and trying to navigate all this this genre stuff and what it means to be a black musician in white spaces and all that, like just trying to understand what am I supposed to do. So I went to Youngstown State for music education. They didn't think I was going to be a good teacher, so I changed my major to performance the final semester that I was there, and graduated with my degree in classical saxophone performance. Then I went straight after, did my master's in the same thing, classical performance at the University of Akron. But the encounters that I had with Sean early on, it was one thing he said to me. I was 19. I'll never forget it. I was explaining to him just the lack of diversity and things like that. And he's like, man, people are going to tell you a lot of things. They're going to tell you can't do a lot of stuff, but if you let that stop you, it's an excuse. It's just an excuse for why you shouldn't. You got to be undeniable. And that just stuck with me, hearing that and just hearing him say that, throughout my life. I just think, there's people that pour into you, and, Miss LeGrand poured into me, and Mr. May, all these people, gave everything they had to make sure that I would be okay. And, I don't know. I'm all right.
Yeah. I hear you.
Turned all right. So as a young man, that's kind of,
mm-hmm.
It was important.
Yeah. And it is important. And I think just going back to the importance of music education, it allows you to be in spaces that find us excluded. For example, you look at the Cleveland Orchestra, ain't a whole lot of us in there. Mm-hmm. And folks who were playing in that orchestra had to do that groundwork. They had to get that degree. They had to have that pedigree that put them in a position to do that. Mm-hmm. Same thing with you being in the Cleveland Orchestra. I mean, you probably wouldn't be playing in the Cleveland Orchestra if you couldn't read music. I mean, aside from Sammy, Sammy De Leon, who doesn't read music.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, it's important sometimes to have that education because it opens doors for you in addition to having people who advocate for you and pour into you. You got to do the work in order to get to that place. And, when I spoke of that survey, they said that the average pay for a musician is somewhere around $385 a gig. And I'm like, well, what world is that? Because it's not the world that we live in here. Not everybody. And the reason that it was that number is actually because it was an average. And so the Cleveland Orchestra pay kind of bumped the average up, And before we get away from it, I just have to mention Mr. Greenwich. I'd never heard him called Willard. I knew him as Billy. Billy used to do gigs with my group, the Jazz Poets.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I remember one time we had this gig that required gospel music, and back then I was struggling with those chords and whatnot, and so he actually wrote the music out for me.
Wow.
So
he's an amazing musician.
Yes. So I'm
amazing.
Not sure if he's still with us.
I hope so.
Okay. Well,
I owe him a lot. All these people, man. None of this stuff that I experience, I never feel like it belongs to me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's so many people that are responsible for what I've been able to do, it's hard to take credit for it, because it's like, well, I mean, the only reason I can even say I'm doing this is because of, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Sean Jones, Mr. May, Mr. Greenwich, Bob Keebler, Mr. Keebler, Dennis Campbell. I can name 100 people and still not be finished with the amount of people that gave me the strength to continue to pursue.
Yes.
So,
it also speaks to the importance of mentoring, which I'm sure you're now doing now that you're in a position to do that. So I think that's a great thing to look at when it comes to the music world. So what do you have going now? What's coming up for you?
Well, we just released a single that's a part of this a song cycle called the Love Demon Song Cycle. We released a single called Mother's Gift, and it's in 2 parts. It's Through the Portal, and that features Orlando Watson, and then it's Mother's Gift Last Wish, which features Tommy Lehman, Flaco Torres, and Scuff Mixon. So right now I'm releasing that, promoting that, and doing shows of the Love Demon, which is written for an anime character that I really admire his story. He's from the Naruto universe. His name's Gaara, Gaara. So that's what I got going on right now. It's just playing that music.
Okay. Playing your music.
Yes,
indeed. I feel you on that. All right. Let the folks know how they can connect with you. I'm sure you have a website, you have social media. How can folks reach out to Chris Coles?
Yeah, Facebook. It's just Chris Coles. Instagram, Cozy Coles 23. You can message me there or just keep up what I'm doing there. I post pretty much exclusively on Instagram. My website is ChristopherColesMusic.com. There you can find various links to my Bandcamp, and if you wanted to email me, you email me there, or just check out general schedule things and stuff of that nature there. But my Instagram is probably the most active. That's where I'm most active.
Okay. I was just thinking as I was driving back from Pittsburgh last night about the time that you spent on stage with Kamasi Washington at the Agora.
Man, that was so long ago.
Yeah. Well, it was a season ago, but it was quite a memory because I was on stage and I was shooting and I was having issues with my camera, so I didn't have the shots that I really wanted, but I do have pictures of you on stage with Kamasi back then. So, and just a side note, that same weekend, I gave him a picture of someone that is in his group. I did this canvas wrap like the ones that I have at Larchmere Arts. I gave him a canvas wrap. And that very same weekend, his father came to Larchmere Arts, and we had a spoken word event, and he actually worked the door for me.
Wow.
What
Kamasi did?
No, his father.
Oh,
no,
his father.
No, I wouldn't get nowhere close to Kamasi.
Oh, man, I was about to say.
Yeah.
But Kamasi's he's a really loving and deep individual. I mean, he's one of those people. I think he gave a lot of people life when he released that record, The Epic, because it just showed the power of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
I think we don't think about that enough.
Yes.
I mean, the power of the collective is a very, very, very strong thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And the collective's not always gonna agree. The collective's not always gonna be happy with each other, but you gotta fight to get to really, really be able to keep that. And I think that something like the 9 Lives Project, I see aspects of that epic thing that Kamasi did when he released the Epic. I kind of see elements of the same thing. There's something strong and deep about us being able to just make music and break bread together.
Yes. Well, I'm going to encourage you to continue on that mission, and let's bring the energy of the collective to Cleveland. Chris Coles, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation with you today. Thanks for being on Open Door.
Oh, Vince, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right. And to those who are listening, as always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. Make today your best day. Peace.